And good morning, Washington, D.C., my beautiful America, my shining city on a hill. I'm Eden Gordon Hill, and welcome to the All American Book Club. Ladies and gentlemen, I promised you a fantastic summer of patriotic books. I promised you an amazing Christmas in July, and I'm also prepping you. We are headed into Reagan summer. Yes, the movie Reagan is coming out in August. We are bringing powerful authors and also talent to the show. And this morning, I have the honor to bring to the show, both on the YouTube channel and also here at WMAL.com, Peggy Grande. She is a friend. We've known each other for years. She has the powerful book, The President Will See You Now. She is the former executive assistant to President Ronald Reagan post the White House years. And in this memoir, she writes about President Reagan and her work with him is just a powerful read, and to remind us the shining city on his hill still exists today. So please welcome to the show, Peggy Grande. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eden, for having me on today. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, we could jump right into a bunch of things. So many things are happening in our nation today, but more than anything, we still have the shining city on the hill. We still have the opportunity to really talk about Reagan and his vision for America and what you personally experienced as his executive assistant post the White House years in California. Could you share with us just some words of inspiration and what we can impart to these future generations as you had walked in that journey and those steps, like many of us weren't able to, but you were able to share that with us in your memoir?
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for highlighting my book, The President Will See You Now. It was such an honor to be able to write that. As you mentioned, I served President Reagan as his executive assistant for 10 years post presidency. So from 1989 to 1999, I had a front row seat to history. And in those years where people know he left the White House and eventually he left the public eye, I wanted to talk about what it was like behind the scenes, those 15 years between him leaving the White House until we said our final goodbye to him. And they were very active years, of course, the first 5 years. And then the second 5 years, it's this long goodbye that Mrs. Reagan talked about. But what were those years like? And as the world was saying goodbye to him, I was still saying good morning to him most days. And so, what was that window of time like? And then the final 5 years, when he left the public eye but was very much still alive, I wanted to show the beauty of how he was cared for and beloved and treated. And so the totality of life, he showed us how to live it with dignity and with character. It's not really a political book, it's a character sketch. And I think people will find in the pages the validation of everything that they thought and hoped that Ronald Reagan was. They get a chance to peek behind the scenes and see that he truly was everything they wanted him to be, and maybe even better.
Absolutely. Well, I want you to give a sneak peek to our audience who have been following us this whole summer. We have the YouTube channel, we put out the press release that you have been a part of, and all the exclusive opportunities for our audience to get engaged. But there's more, not just this one book, but there is more coming from what you are working on about Reagan and his background. And the audience knows that we are bringing talent from the Reagan movie to the show in the coming months. So the parallels there, we're talking about Reagan's mom. So share with me a little bit about your project that you're working on.
Yeah, so I've had the privilege of speaking all across the country and around the world so many times. And every now and then a question sticks with you. And I think when you're on the spot and Q&A is happening, the truth always comes out. And so after a speech that I had given, one person in the audience said, "You've met so many amazing people, from Gorbachev to Margaret Thatcher to Mother Teresa, world leaders from all around the globe. Who did you not meet that you wish you would have met?" And I had never given thought to that. But in the moment, the truth came out, which was Nellie Reagan, Ronald
Mm.
Reagan's mother. Because what kind of woman raises a little boy in the circumstances of poverty with an alcoholic father, basically in the wide spot in the middle of the road in an irrelevant small town in the middle of America? What kind of woman raises a boy like that in those circumstances to believe that he can do and become all that he eventually did?
Mm.
And so my curiosity for Nellie Reagan is one of those things that from that day has just kind of been lurking in the back of my mind. So
Mhm.
I eventually decided that I would take it forward. And so it's in a book proposal stage. The working title right now is Raising Reagan: How Nellie Reagan in the Midwest Shaped the Man Who Changed the World. And
Wow.
Ronald Reagan always referred to her as the most important person in his early life. And so, what was she like? What was she like as a mother, as a person? And from my limited research that I've done so far, it is going to be a fascinating read. And in the arc of his life, when you look at how his life ended after the presidency, when Alzheimer's hits, when you strip away all the pomp and circumstances of the formality of that part of his life, what he was left with that I witnessed in those final 15 years of his life at his side was everything that Nellie Reagan had put into him and invested in him as a young boy: the
Mm.
love of country, the love of God, the patriotism, the love of family. And so we really see her imprint and her fingerprints throughout his life. And really, when his life ends, he's left with everything that she invested in him.
Mm. That's so powerful. And, some of those things that you are highlighting that Nellie Reagan instilled in him, we talk about here at the show, God, country, family. And we constantly are talking about that here at the show. And the audience has really been drawn to that because so much of God and country and family are being removed from the very public square of our today. And as you are coming back from the RNC convention, knowing that you were there and you had the footprint part of California being a delegate, so many things are happening in our nation's history as we head into the 2024 elections. You and I both served at the pleasure of the president, and we both have had many opportunities to see and to fight for our faith and our families in the public square. If Reagan were still here today, what do you think he would be, saying to us as believers and us who have that patriotism, to not give up on the hope of, the shining city on the hill? What would you think he would say to us today?
Yeah. Well, I never like to put words in his mouth, but I would say that, we've seen the totality of the words that he left for us. And he, as much as people are losing faith in the institutions of government, he
Yeah.
always believed in we the people. We the people tell the government what to do, not the other way around. And we've seen time
Absolutely.
and time again that we the people have the capacity to steer government in a way that we want and that we truly still hold the power. And so that requires everybody to step up, to play their part, to get out, to vote, to participate in getting other people to vote as well. And so we the people have to exercise that power. But Reagan, I think, would also remind us that, there always is America's best days ahead. And I've had the opportunity to work for our two MAGA presidents. I mean, Ronald Reagan started the whole saying, make America great again. And
Yeah.
then Donald Trump picked it up. And we, the people, are the ones who make America great again. It's not necessarily our leaders, although our leaders are very important. And we see the lack of leadership happening right now. And we see how that is to the detriment of not only the nation, but the world. But we, the people, have the capacity to make America great again. And we did it for 8 years under Ronald Reagan. And I believe we're going to do it again in the next 4 years under Donald Trump.
Absolutely. You said it so perfectly. As we look to our future generations, as we see all the social attacks happening on the family, and as we look to this upcoming election, you said it yourself, we the people have the opportunity. What do you think it's going to take to get we the people back out to the voting booth? Living here in the great state of North Carolina, my audience knows I live in this battleground state. But we also know there's so many other states and there's so many other people. I talk to people daily and they say, I don't even think I'm going to vote. One, it doesn't matter. And the thing is, we have to change that trajectory and we have to change that vision. So, there's this distortion of the legacy media of them, listening to that, or it's just them saying, I'm tired. I'm tired of what's happening. How do we put money back in our bank accounts and gas in our gas tanks and food back on the table? How do we re-engage we the people to get out and vote? What are your personal thoughts and your journey that you have taken? Because you travel from California to DC all the time. What do you feel? What do you want to share with people when you hear those things?
Yeah. Well, as a lifelong Californian, I truly understand what you're talking about. And there's so many people in California who feel really that their vote, their voice and their vote does not matter. But I will tell you it does, not only for the top of the ticket, but for our down ballot races. And, we heard former Speaker McCarthy just recently talk about California districts that are in play for the first time in decades. And so it may not turn California red on the presidential ticket, but all those down ballot races matter. I
Mhm.
would also say to people, and as a mother of four, grandmother of two, I engage with a lot of women in particular who say, I just, politics is icky, it's messy, I don't really want to be part of it. But I always remind them that even if you're not into politics, politics is into you. It's into your school's curriculum, it is into your gas tank, it's into your food prices, it is into the safety or lack of safety on your streets, it is into inflation that causes you to have to decide whether you're going to cool your house or buy groceries this week. It causes you to engage with politics at every single level. And hopefully everybody, even people who aren't into politics, realizes that their choices, the politicians, the people that they elect, matter. And politics is into you, whether or not you are into politics. So step up, make your choice and your voice heard and known. And we do have the power, even if we can't in a state like California this time, maybe flip the top of the ticket. I think we're going to see a lot of races in play, even in places like California that haven't been for a long time. That's important. Everybody needs to get out and vote. If not, we can't complain about what we're seeing happen to us right now.
So well put. That is so well put because you have our everyday Americans who just are so focused on raising their families, focus on being able to get to work. And it's so well put to say politics is into you. And we have to realize that aspect of what is now literally in front of us. It's in our backyards
Right.
and us to really get involved. And when I ran, and thank you so much for your support, when I ran, I realized all politics is local.
It is.
It really is. Everything is a trickle down effect, and it really
Yep.
starts in the home, at the kitchen table, the common sense values of today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
As
And
we
common sense is something that we've kind of lost sight of. And I think that the crazy has gone far enough to the left that even people who don't follow politics, maybe they are diehard progressives, they're saying, okay, maybe this is even a little crazy for me. So let's bring common sense back. And,
Yes.
one of my favorite Reagan quotes that I think he sums it up so well is he said, whatever else history may say about me when I'm gone, may it say that I appeal to your best hopes, not to your worst fears, to your confidence rather than your doubts. And so much of politics today appeals to our fear, appeals to our doubts, tries to divide us, tries to make us afraid, and has done a really good job at that. But Reagan said that's not what leadership should be about. We should be appealing to people's confidence, to their best hopes, to have them believe and participate in the fact that America's best days are still ahead. There is that shining city on the hill, and we all have the opportunity to be part of it. And so he said it beautifully, and we see the contrast of those words today. And we're hoping to get back to a place of common sense, to courage, to have bold people like you step up and say, I'm willing to lead, I'm willing to use my voice to represent all those people out there who don't have a platform, who aren't having given the occasion or the opportunity to use their voice for good, to encourage and to inspire and to influence others.
No, well put, and thank you for that. You basically just took the words out of my mouth for my next thought and my next question. But as we're headed into the final segment of the show here at the All American Book Club, this audience is also encompassing of young Hill staffers. You have members of Congress, and you have these young Hill staffers that are imparting wisdom to these elected officials. You have those who are working on the House and the Senate side, and those who are working in the White House. What From your journey that you have had in so many different aspects, what are some words of encouragement and hope that you would share with these young staff members as they are just beginning, or, and as they are headed into what's ahead for my career, depending on how the election turns out? Either way, what would you say to them just to give them some words of wisdom and hope?
Yeah. First of all, I'd say thank you. Thank you for stepping up, for serving, for stepping in a position that you know is going to be difficult and maybe toxic and maybe, unfortunately, sometimes dangerous. But thank you for stepping up to
Mm.
serve your country in this way. And so I hope that they are learning and enjoying their experience and opportunity to be here. But I know from having served two presidents, and you have served as well, it is
Mhm.
an honor and a privilege to be able
Yes.
to not only serve one man, one person, but to serve the American taxpayer. And that's an
Yes.
opportunity that so few people have. And so take that as a real privilege and a true honor to be able to serve the American people in that way. I
Mm.
would also encourage them to, we're talking about the book, read my book, because in the pages of my book, I talk about being very young, very green, stepping into an environment I knew was far too big for me, that I knew I didn't have the skills and probably didn't even belong in. But how do you find your footing? How do you find that you eventually do add value? You do know what you're doing. You do have confidence that you belong there. And so it chronicles my journey in that. And I would just have them continue to be bold, to be unafraid, to realize what a privilege and an honor it is. And then I would also have them realize a lesson that I learned very early in working for President Reagan. I guess
Mm.
I thought when I was a young person stepping into the political arena, you had to choose one of two paths. Are you going to be strong and successful, or are you
Mm.
going to be a kind, good person? And I thought those were two very different paths. And then I went to work for Ronald Reagan, and I realized that clearly strong and successful. He was president of the United States. He stood toe to toe with Gorbachev, challenged him to tear the wall down. The Berlin Wall eventually came down. He brought an
Mm.
end to the Cold War. And so nobody doubts that he was strong and successful. But
Mhm.
the other side of that man was somebody who was kind, who was warm, who was gracious, who was charismatic, who was thoughtful, who truly saw people, who understood their hurt, their fear, their pain, and wanted to do something about it with the power that he was given. And so, as these young staffers are stepping into these big roles and these big shoes, realize you don't have to choose strong and successful or kind and a good person. Reagan showed us it could be done that way. And as much as I am engaged in the political arena, my goal is always to answer and to respond with civility. And I'll tell you, usually they don't know how to respond. If they're attacking you and you respond in a kind, civil way, it doesn't mean that you have to step back on your principles or be soft. It means you can be principled, you can be unapologetic for what you believe in, but you can do it in a way that is civil and respectful to others, having the right to have their own point of view as well.
Mm, well put. And you know what? For all those who are tuning in, that was PR 101 with Peggy Grande for sure, because you nailed it. So many of these young professionals on the Hill don't have the toolkit, and you present that so well in so many different aspects of The President Will See You Now through your book. And so, as we wrap this segment, I'm grateful for your leadership, your faith, and what you have done for this nation, but what you continue to do for this nation as we serve this nation, one nation under God. And I'm just grateful for your friendship and looking forward to having you back here and excited to see what God has in store next for this beautiful nation of ours.